first become interested in writing, in poetry, etc.?
Well, I've always been interested in writing. I've always written. It sort of stems back from my junior school days when I won a writing competition, and that kind of spurred me on. And then when I was sort of 18, 19, 20, I used to go to a lot of gigs, and I used to write reviews. I used to write reviews of albums and things like that were published. So it was quite sporadic, but it was, the passion has always been there. But in 2012, a number of factors came together, and I decided to give up my work and my paid work, a salaried job, and pursue my writing career. I'd written a book back in 2007 that I sent to literary agents in 2010. It was by no means completed, so I decided that I wanted to concentrate on getting that book published. But in the interim, I also decided to pursue my poetry, which I've, again, always written, and decided that I wanted to see that published as well. And since that time, I've produced 4 volumes of poetry, and I've just released my second novel. So it's definitely been worthwhile from a personal, creative point of view. And that, it's just something that's grown and grown and grown, really.
That's going back to 2012 for a second. That's a brave step. There must have been, were there any sleepless nights over that?
It was a big decision, but I had the support of my husband, and he said, just go for it. I mean, there were a number of factors that kind of all coincided at the same time, and we obviously discussed it extensively, and decided to go for it. If it didn't work out, I would go back to work, but it's, so far so good.
What do you like about the poetry, about writing poetry, composing poetry?
I like the fact that it's a different creative outlet for me. It allows me to tackle subjects that are fairly current. And my poetry, I don't have a particular genre of poetry. My poetry covers a wide range of different subjects, from political through to sort of trivial, current affairs, love, life, death, everything in between, really. My first 3 volumes, Observations, Perceptions and Directions, kind of meant to be a trilogy. They sort of cover all those genres that I've mentioned. My most recent book of poetry just sort of touches on, I've already mentioned that I'm a big fan of music, and they kind of touch on music, musical heroes, all that type of sort of thing. So it's more focused. And my next collection, well, I've got 2 collections in the pipeline. One is a collection of Doctor Who poetry. My poetry has been published in the Doctor Who Appreciation Society magazine, and the editor suggested to me it might be a nice idea to pull all the poetry together in a collection, because it's only ever been published there, it's never been published online. You have to subscribe to the magazine to be able to see it. So it was at his suggestion, really, that I put that one out. And then the other one is called Songs of Sorrow and Heartbreak, and it's going to be quite dark, but it's all about love, loss, death. Quite a cheery little thing.
No gags, no. You mentioned you mentioned musical heroes, but are there any poets that you admire, respect, or any that you loathe?
I mean, I'm willing to give most people, most poets a try. I've tried reading some of the more classical poets, and they don't really do it for me. I do like the work of Oscar Wilde and William Burroughs and Tennyson. if we're looking sort of, classical, but more contemporary. I really love the work of Sophia Blackwell. She has a very sort of clever way of saying things without saying it, if that makes sense. You know what she's alluding to without actually being blatant about it. I also like Jerry Potter, who is a Liverpudlian poet. He's very wise as well, the way that he kind of comes across. I admire a lot of people. I did a poetry reading the other day and came across a poet called Jill West, who's local to Leigh-on-Sea, and she was excellent as well. So I'm always sort of picking up influences from people wherever I sort of go, really.
How is it doing recitations? I mean, a comedian can pick up vibes. I guess a band, for good or bad, and bands do. Do you pick up vibes if a night is going well or a recitation's going well?
Yes, absolutely. I always like to know where I am in the sort of pecking order, for the want of a better description, because then I can pick up. I mean, the other night I was just told it's not on a particular theme. A lot of the recitations that I do are on a particular theme, so that helps me to plan a bit better about the poems that I'm going to read. But when they're a bit more fluid, picking up a vibe is definitely the way to go. And then, like on Tuesday night, I just decided on the night which poems I was going to choose.
What's anybody who wants to start off? I always ask this question of all artists, I guess, is what's your advice to them?
I'd just say go with your gut instinct. Don't be afraid of what the people think, and go with your gut instinct and what's inside of you. Just be brave, really.
Are you part of an artistic or a poetry community? Do you speak to other poets? Do you interact, or is it a solitary career, profession?
More solitary than anything, but I do have a lot of connections. I'm not in a particular group, but I do use social media, Twitter and Facebook mostly, to connect with other poets. I'm in a couple of sort of online groups on Facebook, but not particularly active in those. But there are some events that I do sort of attend on a semi-regular basis.
Finally, if as a primer, as an introduction to your work, what would you like people to read first, if they could?
Well, as I say, I've produced a trilogy of works, observations, perceptions and directions, and they offer a broad brushstroke of my work. My most recent work is more kind of theme, and I would say that's probably a good, if you're interested in music, that's probably a good point to sort of enter my world of poetry. It covers a range of poetry styles and gives people a feel for what I'm about.
We haven't really touched upon your novel, have we? So I'll give you an opportunity to touch upon that.
Yeah, I've just published my second novel called Baby, Can You Hear Me? My first novel, as I say, that was the primary reason for me deciding to give up work and concentrate on getting that out, and that came out last year, 2015. It's a very good, positive critique, actually. So that kind of spurred me on to write another novel. It's about two sisters who, although very different, find themselves in a similar situation, and it's how they each cope. One of them copes very well, the other one doesn't cope very well because of what happens when they each have a child. So when the child is born with a disability, it's how she copes. And I've had to draw on personal experience in order to write that book. So it was something that I felt was in me, that I felt it was a story that needed to be told.
Excellent. And if people wish to purchase the
Everything's available on Amazon in ebook and paperback. But for all my publications, everything's on Amazon.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Michael.